A Giants podcast for Giants fans
by Giants fans.
It's Shaun Morash.
On the sideline, into the end zone. Touchdown, Giants!
From the offseason to the wins and the losses, it's time to take one Giant step.
Welcome inside One Giant Step. The Christmas holiday is behind us. The Hanukkah holiday continues, and we have 2 weeks left in the NFL season, a Week 17 that has already begun thanks to 2 games on Christmas Day. I'm Shaun Morash. He's Bryce Gelman, at Bryce Gelman, at Shaun Morash, on Twitter, X, whatever the hell you're calling it these days, whatever the kids are saying it. Hope everybody who celebrates had a very Merry Christmas. Thank you, of course, for downloading, subscribing, giving a little click, a little listen during this long, grueling season of Giants football. But the home finale is here, the Giants and Colts, a game that originally was in a pool of 5 games to be picked to be played on Saturday. Had the game actually been relevant for the Giants, maybe it would have been, as Saturday is the anniversary of the greatest game ever played. Instead, this game will be Sunday at 1 o'clock, where I'm sure another airplane is going to dumbly fly over MetLife Stadium. Bryce, here we are, the final home game where the Giants try to accomplish something we've never seen in our lives, a winless home season at the tin can known as MetLife Stadium.
First off, let me just say Merry Christmas to everyone out there. Happy Hanukkah to those who are celebrating, and a Merry Christmas to you, Shaun, and your family.
Thank you, Bryce. I appreciate it.
The positive sentiments are needed because of this disastrous season that we've lived through this year. So, just want to get that out of the way. Shaun, I'm so excited for this game. I'm kidding. I'm not. I actually have a dilemma that do I start the Colts defense in my dynasty championship?
I mean, well, first of all, how do you not consider it? Drew Lock? And let's just start right there. Drew Lock has been named the starting quarterback for this game. Maybe you're out on the news, missed it. I know it's weird when the holidays are, midweek like that. You kind of lose out on football news. But the Giants are going back to Drew Lock, which screams tankathon to me. He has obviously given defenses and now multiple game scores. Flat-out scores with pick sixes. Last week, obviously, the Thanksgiving game versus Dallas, and they're going back to him. So, Bryce, let's just have a general Drew Lock conversation. Tommy DeVito clearly was cleared of concussion protocol. He was the backup last week. They have Timmy Boyle hanging around who gave you something, at least in that second half, or at least in that fourth quarter of, what was that, the Ravens game? I'm losing track of what game where he looked like halfway decent, threw a touchdown pass to Malik Neighbors. And they're going back to Drew Lock, who is just, dreadful at turning the ball over. And I can't quite figure out why they aren't just flipping the page back to DeVito, who at the very least doesn't turn the ball over, and going with Drew Lock. So I have 2 theories. You tell me what is more likely. Okay? Theory number 1. The season's lost. The coach is not an idiot, although the coach is going to try to, in theory, win for his own protection if he is indeed worried about his job. He knows that the other 2 guys are equally as bad, and at least their best chance at winning is feeding Malik Neighbors, and Drew Lock does that at a consistent rate. When in doubt, he just chucks it to Malik Neighbors, and that also keeps Malik Neighbors from saying something stupid post-game the last 2 weeks. That's theory number 1. Or theory number 2, they have once again been guaranteed their jobs, and John Mara understands the plan. John Mara understands, as bad as this is, that he has been convinced the best way to fixing this, maybe within his own family, is, Mr. Mara, we need a quarterback, and the only way you're going to get one of these 2 quarterbacks is by picking in the top 2. So suck it up and deal with the losses, as terrible as it might be being shown on TV. So of those 2, do you think either of those 2 is likely, or do you have another theory as to why the hell we're going back to Drew Lock here?
Man, I freaking hope it's option 2. I really do. I think option 1 is more plausible. The idea that John Mara would guarantee anything to these guys, considering, the firestorm that we've seen in the media among the fans, all these different people who want people fired. They want these guys gone.
They want blood. I don't blame fans. It's frustrating. You want blood.
I get it. I just find it hard pressed that John Mara has guaranteed the jobs of Brian Dable and Joe Schoen here. I do think that at the end of the day, John Mara does understand the importance of tanking. I think he sees, he has to. I mean, listen, I think we talk a lot about John Mara and whether or not he's a good owner, whether or not we trust him to find a replacement, but I don't think he's an idiot. I think he understands the lack of quarterback that this team has had over the last 2 or 3 years. And I think that any reasonable owner, and that's kind of a stretch here, we're talking about John Mara is reasonable. I think he's somewhat reasonable. I think, he's won 2 Super Bowls I guess, 2 Super Bowls since his father died, with him being the main owner along with Tisch. I don't know, Shaun. I think that he has to see this as clear cut as we all see it. You need a quarterback. That's the most important thing. Now, whether I think that he's guaranteed the jobs of Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll is another story. I don't necessarily believe that. I think the Neighbors thing is plausible as well. I think the idea that you get the ball to him, you don't have to worry about what he's going to say to the media. I think that that's kind of important. Yeah. It's sad that we're talking about that in Week 17, placating your rookie wide receiver at this point of the year. It's kind of crazy.
Remember, the last time the Giants were in a situation like this where the season absolutely was tumultuous, we knew Dave Gettleman was out because he was quote-unquote retiring, even though that felt like he was being pushed out the door because he sucked. They have Joe Schoen to a 5-year contract, so he's only 3 years in. Maybe this is just Daboll's own situation, but what really pushed Joe Judge over the edge is that he basically just lost it with the media. And he started rambling, saying, like, the 2 rants at the end of the year were like, whoa, where is this going? Where it's kind of like he snapped. He couldn't take coach in the bad football team anymore. And if you notice, people get very frustrated with Brian Daboll says post-game, but it's a science. Brian Daboll's literally saying nothing to these guys post-game. And people get very frustrated and mad at that. Also, what do you want him to say? I look at it as good. Unfortunately, he's not going to give our beat reporters anything to chew on that they could twist, right? Because they have a job to do too and, sell big stories. So as a result of that, if he knows he could take care of himself and not sounding like an idiot the way Joe Judge did, what's the other thing you have to make sure of? Make sure that locker room in the last 2 games isn't, with microphones in their face saying really crappy things. And if you notice, it's been like a concerted effort. Malik Neighbors has said all the right things for the last 3 weeks. Oh, by the way, this is since he's gotten the ball a ton last week with 7 catches and all of that. So I hate to placate that way, but look, Malik Neighbors, I think, is a great talent. I love that he's a New York Giant. I love that he wants the ball. But Malik Neighbors is probably the one wild card post game you have to worry about the last 2 weeks. So if you know that by starting Drew Lock, at the very least, Drew Lock is just going to wing the ball to Neighbors all game long, so be it. I mean, Neighbors is saying the right things, though, right? We didn't win. I just, about win. Like, he's saying all the right things. But ultimately, he ain't going to like losing and not getting the ball. So Drew Lock does that. So that's probably, to me, the case where Daboll's just trying. The only thing he can control is that kind of stuff. So, we'll see. Now, with that, Christmas Day games happen. I had a take on Twitter I wanted to bring to the pod here, and that is we've just seen Saturday and Wednesday games with the same combination of 4 teams, right? It's the Chiefs, it's the Steelers, it's the Texans, who looked dreadful versus Baltimore on Christmas Day, and Baltimore. The Chiefs and Ravens both identified and drafted quarterbacks in the first round, Patrick Mahomes and Lamar Jackson, as did the Houston Texans, though their O-line is kind of backtracked, and they're going to be in the playoffs, though, for a second straight year with C.J. Stroud. Whether Stroud, has looked as great as last year or not, okay, that's up for debate. Clearly, it's not been the same year. A lot of things have gone against the Texans, but guess what? Still ahead in the division with a quarterback. The one team that didn't draft and identify their quarterback is the Pittsburgh Steelers, who had Russell Wilson in there, and people praise the Pittsburgh Steelers, as you know, Bryce, for that whole run of games in October and November when Russ, was winning games, but it was really about the Steelers defense. And now we've seen in back-to-back games versus true contenders, the Ravens and the Chiefs, Russell Wilson has not looked great. The Steelers, as a result, have looked like they haven't belonged with the AFC's elite. And I said this to say, I think Mike Tomlin's a hell of a coach, clearly. I think the Steelers are a hell of a stable organization, clearly. I think any Giant fan would long for consistent 9 to 10 win seasons where you're always in the playoff conversation, if not the playoffs, clearly. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. But ultimately, the Giants have won a Super Bowl more recently than the Pittsburgh Steelers, okay? And Ben Roethlisberger, because we weren't paying attention, had a lot of that end of Eli situation going where, he kind of aged rapidly, but because he was who he was out there. What the end of Eli was and what the end of Ben Roethlisberger was, without signing them because they were already under contract, those were bridge quarterbacks. They no longer became elite, and you couldn't win Super Bowls with them. And now the Steelers took a swing at Kenny Pickett. Again, wrong quarterback draft. That was the only quarterback taken in the first round. They've now had Justin Fields, Russell Wilson, and Tomlin has done a hell of a job coaching them the relevancy. But Bryce, I say this to tie into the Giants. there has been a lot of discussion about the Giants being picked first or second and people saying, well, they have so many holes. Why risk taking a quarterback? What if you miss? Go take another position. Go sign a bridge quarterback and figure out what you want to do. The Steelers are the lesson in that. If that is your goal to be the Pittsburgh Steelers, sure, go do it. To me, as bad as this season is and as bad as Giants football is, the goal is to build another Super Bowl contender, another team that can win a Super Bowl. And I want to be consistently good, but I want to be more like the Ravens and the Chiefs than I want to be the Pittsburgh Steelers. Yep. And in my opinion, I consider where the Steelers are no man's land. And people take that as a slight. Look, no man's land to me means you're right in the middle of the NFL where you're always going to be good enough to make the playoffs, but you're going to be never bad enough to be at the top of the draft, where I think you need to be in this day and age to draft or take a swing at the quarterback you want. And I think the Steelers, the last two games, if you've watched them nationally, are an example of what the Giants should actually not want to be than what they want to be. And that is, don't be afraid to take a swing at quarterback, root for these losses, all of that. Giants fans who are scared to take Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders, if those guys miss, they miss. But you have a better chance of becoming a Super Bowl contender faster by taking a swing. And if those guys hit, woof, baby, now you're cooking. Look at Lamar Jackson and the Ravens. Then you are, hey, sign Sam Darnold, sign Fields, and hope you just keep drafting all the other holes and becoming the Pittsburgh Steelers. Bryce, where do you stand on that?
I think it's a good comparison to make. It's a good analogy. Because here's the thing about the NFL. In recent years, everything has shifted. Now teams understand that in order to win, you need to draft that quarterback. That's why you see multiple quarterbacks taken to the top of drafts. The Giants with the number one overall pick. Shedeur Sanders on these draft boards, he's 17th, 18th ranked prospect. Cam Ward even lower than that. They are so much more invaluable to a franchise if they hit than whoever else you take. Even Travis Hunter, if you wanted to play both positions in the NFL,
right?
You get the quarterback, you hit the quarterback, that's it. Everything else will fall into place. You see what's happening. You mentioned, I know I'm preaching to the choir here, but I think that you can't look at draft boards when analyzing whether or not it was a good pick. This isn't Daniel Jones at 6, all right? This isn't a quarterback where you knew it was a force. You knew that they were taking a guy who shouldn't have gone there. In the current state of the NFL, if the Giants don't take a quarterback at 1 or 2, wherever they end up, it's going to be 1, knock on wood, another team will. Right behind them.
Course,
another team will. If the Giants don't, another team will. Do you really want to be that team who had the number one pick and drafted Travis Hunter, passed up on Shedeur Sanders or Cam Ward, and one or both of those guys turned out to be an absolute stud?
Of course,
you look like an idiot. You look like an idiot for saying that.
And if you build like a team the Steeler way, maybe it is even Russell Wilson they wanted to sign or anything. And let's just say they found it. And even if you wanted Dable fired, they hired the right head coach, whatever. The Giants haven't picked first overall since 1965. They got very fortunate.
They wouldn't have been bad enough. They wouldn't have been bad enough to get the quarterback.
When are they going to be bad enough to take this swing without giving up a ton of assets again? So to me, I'm taking the chance. And look, they could miss. I'm not telling you it's a guarantee, Shedeur. This is not the Kenny Pickett, Malik Willis draft either, though. Let's stop acting like these are horrible. Yeah. There's no shot they're franchise. No, of course there's a good shot they're a franchise quarterback. So that's where I stand, man. I just watching these group of 4 teams that played Christmas Day and that had to play the Saturday. It was just something that jumped out to me that we all praise the Steelers for Russell Wilson. And I understand the Steeler praise, but if you actually really want to be real about it, that team ain't winning a Super Bowl until they figure out the quarterback position. They're going to constantly be a team. And I understand Giant fans would kill to be in the wild card round every year. You would until you start getting there, and then you realize, what the hell, man? We're always there, and we never break through. We're the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Dude, it's like the New York Yankees. How many times did they get near the World Series or close to the World Series before actually doing what needed to be done, which is require a major lefty bat? Yeah. They finally did it, and they lose the guy a year later. That's another story for another day.
Yeah, well,
it's serious. Cool. It's the same thing, and I hate that. I hate that, though. Like the idea of like being a Yankees fan. I understand what it's like to be a Steelers fan. I understand what it's like to be good/mediocre, to make the playoffs every year, to have World Series or Super Bowl, aspirations, and then to never actually reach them. It's way more painful than sucking year after year after year and not actually taking the swing and not actually trying or getting a chance to take a franchise quarterback, or in the Yankees case, to go out and sign a major lefty bat.
Yeah, no doubt about it, Bryce. Now, that's where we stand. So before we get into fantasy reality, though, we do a little mailbag, a little mixed bag here.
Yep.
What do we got?
Let's see. I appreciate you. I appreciate you not forgetting this time. But here we go. Okay. So, all right. So All right. Well, these like long. Like, get to your point. Get to your point. Michael Sheridan says, okay, this isn't even a question. It's just a point. Wheezy Sports at Wheezy Sports says, my question: how many losses into next season do you think it'd take to fire the coaching staff? Can I start?
Yeah, go ahead.
0-5. I think that's it.
I don't think they're going to fire the coaching staff in season next year if they kept him. I'm not even convinced they'd fire him.
I think it would get too much. I think it would get to be too much. I think it would be like a firestorm, even with the new quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends how it looks again, though. Everybody wants this. Here's the point that I know Wheezy Sports is getting at. A lot of people believe if you don't fire the coach and GM, which again, it's hard for me to defend keeping them when the season is 2 wins, but I think it's more nuanced than that. Again, I go back to, how many games Daniel Jones lost his team. The talent was good enough to win, but that's neither here nor there. I think it's more nuanced to that. I don't think you just assume, well, you're going to screw the next quarterback because you're definitely firing this regime after next year. I think that's kind of silly. How does it look? Are they starting 0-5 where they're getting blown out on opening day again and all that? You got to assume also, by the way, like I pointed to last week when Michael Penix was starting, rookie quarterbacks generally lose their first starts. Although Penix obviously won, they're now 2-13 in the last 15 of the first round quarterbacks. But I mean, the team just can't. By mid-October, you can't feel like you're eliminated again. So I guess to your point, yeah, 0-5. But I'm not even sure they'd fire them in season. I really don't. So I think there's a good chance if they keep the regime that the regime stays for 2 years. I do think that. But look, if you're getting blown out and you're 2-15 again, sure, then that can't happen. But it's a big offseason, and I think people got to understand that. Everybody keeps worrying about, the holes this team has, and that's just why you shouldn't take a quarterback. Well, guess what? They're going to have $60 million in cap space in the first pick, in the second round, the third round, the fourth round. All of that stuff adds up to plugging a lot of freaking holes and getting some talent in here. And not to mention, hopefully the draft class they just had that we've praised the picks of taking that next step in a second year. So football's weird, man. Things can look a lot different year to year. Okay, what's the next question?
We don't have questions. We have points. I'm gonna read
people are angry. People are angry.
I get it. At Jeff Johnson at Giants fan 014. Steelers haven't won a playoff game since 2016. It's amazing you're getting pushback on this. A great coach and great franchise stability and structure keeps them consistent. Lack of above average QB play keeps them from winning anything more meaningful. This isn't complicated. So he agrees. Don Jones at Don Jones ZX. I can't wait for the Giants to draft the next Daniel Jones. Sanders has a weak arm. He won't pan out in the NFL. But let's make sure the team really sucks so we can get him.
Okay. First of all, again, I'm not saying take Shedeur Sanders. I'm fine with Cam Ward either. Like, I'm fine with either one. Second of all, what you have now, and I'm not trying to tout my own being. I love watching college football. I bet a lot of college football on Saturdays. I enjoy the sport. You're an idiot if you think Shedeur Sanders doesn't have an arm.
Yeah.
And what Shedeur Sanders does, which we haven't seen for the Giants in quite some time, under pressure, stays in there and delivers throws as pressure is in his face. That is an unbelievable trait to have, especially when we've complained about offensive line play for a long time. And I'm not telling you that Shedeur Sanders won't be a bust in the NFL or Cam Ward won't. I can't stress that enough. They could be. Yep. But what I'm telling you is any single year you're at the top of the draft and you take a quarterback at the top, there is a fair chance they are a bust. But guess what? You don't do it, then you're not getting the hit either.
Yeah.
Like, that's the part that I can't take. Oh, well, wait till next year. All right, then be the Steelers. And then what if you, we're not bad enough now to get to, when you're bad enough, like it or not, take the swing. Unless it is a year like the Kenny Pickett, which it's not, where you just know, literally, there are 2 guys this year. Last year there were 5. There are 2 guys this year. Take the swing.
All right, last one here from at Nikki the Good. Sean's correct. This is why I'll never understand fans that care about the team's fight when it obviously they need to tank and lose games. Nobody will ever remember these games. If you don't have a franchise QB, you must have a bulletproof team around you to maybe get to a Super Bowl. Let's look at the last time this happened, where there was a bulletproof team with a terrible QB who won a Super Bowl.
The Eagles.
I'm not saying that. Jalen Hurts was, okay, he's a fine quarterback. He was able to run.
No,
the tush-push was unstoppable.
You're an idiot. You're wrong Eagle team. It's Nick Foles.
Oh, Nick Foles played extremely well throughout that
But
entire
he wasn't a
playoff run.
franchise quarterback.
I
That's the
get
last
that, but he
time.
played really well. He was in a good system. I want to go back to Peyton Manning with the Broncos. I think that that's a better example. Peyton Manning sucked. Genuinely had no arm. He was carried by the defense. Nick Foles was a serviceable, an above average serviceable quarterback. Peyton Manning sucked. He was not good.
No. All right, so Bryce, I don't disagree with your points. That was the worst Peyton Manning year for me, and he was very old and at the end. But this is where a franchise quarterback's not just about ability. The Broncos, despite their defense, aren't winning that Super Bowl with Brock Osweiler either. Peyton Manning's smarts and brains and everything, that part of being a franchise quarterback was still there.
I get
that.
that.
No, it doesn't matter. Nick Foles, yes, played well. They were, Doug Peterson, I'm cooking, but that team was well-rounded and everything. Nick Foles also won that Super Bowl versus Tom Brady, but think about that was a year where in the championship game, two of the other quarterbacks were Blake Bortles and Case Keenum. Like that was such a rare year where three quarterbacks who were not franchise quarterbacks are playing championship weekend. Now, you want to make the case for Peyton Manning? Sure. I still look at Peyton Manning's brains there being a franchise quarterback, despite the fact that his arm talent was not what it was.
Brains aren't winning you games at the end of the day. Like
the point is, we're still going back a while now. Like the league is I don't think people realize every 5 years how this league evolves. That's still a long time for that Peyton Manning Bronco team. It's still a long time for the Nick Foles Eagles team. We're living in a Patrick Mahomes world now. But you think of the AFC. Is anybody taking a team other than the Ravens, Bills, or Chiefs to make it right now? All first-round quarterbacks. In the NFC, yes, Jalen Hurts was taken high second round. He's still, I think, shown enough to be a franchise quarterback. But guess what? If you have doubts about Jalen Hurts, isn't that ultimately going to be the reason if it's an Eagles-Chiefs or Eagles-Bills or Eagles-Ravens Super Bowl, you're not picking the Eagles? Like, if you're not going to pick the Eagles, what's the reason? You don't believe in Jalen Hurts, probably, right? But I still think he is a franchise quarterback. And beyond that, why is nobody believing the Bucs, right? Because you like Baker Mayfield, right? You think Baker Mayfield's good attitude. You believe Baker Mayfield and the Bucs are winning Super Bowl? No. The Rams you would give a puncher's chance to because why? Matt Stafford. Yeah. And last but not least, is anybody actually thinking the Vikings are going to win the Super Bowl with Sam Darnold? No, you don't believe that. You don't believe that. The Lions, look, Jared Goff's a first-round quarterback in a new life. I think he is a franchise quarterback. I think he is a franchise quarterback. I do. And has the pedigree of that. So it's about franchise quarterback. You could build a team to be good enough. Why did the Niners fail in all of these Super Bowls? They didn't have the better quarterback play because they didn't have a franchise quarterback. And I don't believe Brock Purdy is such, at least now. So, again, I know what we're longing for. We'd kill to be the Steelers because we want to be good and relevant. We're tired of these seasons. There's no doubt the Steelers have been a better organization for the Giants the last decade. The Giants still have won a championship more recently because the end of Ben Roethlisberger was similar to the end of Eli Manning, and they haven't had a franchise quarterback. So all I'm saying is this is my case why I don't want to bridge and build a team that way. I want to take a swing and hope I hit gold. That's all.
Yep.
That's all. Is that our questions? Is that our statements?
Yeah.
We get the fan. All right. Let's go to fantasy.
Yeah,
fantasy versus reality. We have two more of these. We have the Colt game, then we have the Eagle game. I'll be honest. I was scared last week. I really was. I thought the idea of starting a rookie quarterback first start, like there was going to be a moment or two, and I thought that game was going to be tight, and I was wrong. What the truth is, though, and I give Michael Penix credit. He deserves credit for winning his first football game. Let's be real, though. That game doesn't look that way without 3 Drew Lock turnovers, 2 of which resulted in 14 the offense didn't score. Yeah. So you take that away, you take away those points. Now you're talking about a 20-7. What did we score? 7 last week? 20-7 game. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Now you take away that fumble. Now it's 17-7. Like that game is closer than you think without Drew Lock turning the ball over left and right, but Drew Lock did. And I think in a cold day at MetLife, if the Giants get punched in the mouth early with Jonathan Taylor running the ball down their throat, I think you're going to see some give up. I just think that's natural. You're out there cold weather, lost season. You really want to get hurt tackling this guy if you go down early. So fantasy-wise, look, to me, I'm sorry, Bryce, I'm going chalky. It's got to be Malik Neighbors because I think he's just going to catch 7-8 balls. He'll get 80 yards receiving. Maybe he scores another touchdown, and the whole game's predicated on Neighbors. So that's my fantasy play. The reality of the game, man, look, I don't think the Giants are winning this game, clearly. If I had to say how they would, it's just that you get a fart in the win game from Anthony Richardson where they do a good job in saying defensively from Shane Bowen, we're going to swarm and stack the box and dare Anthony Richardson to beat us. And on a cold day, he makes a couple errant throws and we keep Jonathan Taylor to less than 100 yards and the Giants don't turn the ball over. By the way, no way am I telling you that's going to happen. That is quite literally, to me, and I don't know if Bryce disagrees, the only path where you could see a stunning win on Sunday would be that. So I think Giants-wise, I think Malik Neighbors is going to do Malik Neighbors things. I think they're likely going to get the ball shoved down their throat, and it's going to be one big Colt party on Sunday. But, that's the only path. Now, what I think happens, I think Jonathan Taylor probably runs wild in this game. I think the Giants defense probably, again, on a cold day, you have some moments going, geez, these guys, they don't want to get hurt before the year. I don't think they give up 30, but I think it's close. I'm going to go 27. Touchdown field. I'm going 27-10. Giants lose to the Colts at a very ho-hum.
Close to what I had last week.
Not sexy game at all. Okay, take it away, Bryce.
All right, so fantasy-wise, I think the Giants are going to get down early in this game. I think, as you mentioned, to your credit, I think the Colts are going to run all over the Giants. The Giants are leading the league in missed tackles. They're eighth in missed tackles, but they're first in total yards allowed off missed tackles, which is like over 1,000, which is the only team in the league that is over 1,000. They cannot tackle to save their lives. They have a two-headed snake running threat in that backfield in Richardson, who is kind of come into his own over the last 6-7 weeks since he was benched, and Jonathan Taylor, who 209 yards and 3 touchdowns last week, which is absurd. Almost killed me in fantasy single-handedly. I think that they are going to get down early. So when you're playing from behind, Drew Lock, a guy who can't necessarily complete the ball down the field, check downs. He's going to be completing the ball in the flat, to Neighbors as well. I don't want to go Neighbors. I think that's the easy pick. I think I'm going to go with Tyrone Tracy in this game. I think that, again, you get down early in a game with a quarterback that just threw 2 pick sixes last week. He's going to try to make the easy reads. He's not going to be trying to look downfield. Again, he's going to be forcing Neighbors. But other than that, he's going to be trying to get the ball to Tyrone Tracy, who, again, was a receiver in college and is really good as a receiving back. And also the dual threat. If the Giants don't go down big, maybe he could, find some holes in the running game. Let's see. I think Tyrone Tracy is a safe play in this game. I think the Giants win this game. They have to force turnovers, and they can't turn the ball over themselves. Like, they need to force at least 2 or 3 Anthony Richardson turnovers. We've seen it happen repeatedly this season. He turns the ball over a lot. They haven't really been letting him loose with the arm. They've kind of been like brute force down the middle runs with him. The QB draw, the option, which of course when Jonathan Taylor is running for 209 yards is a huge threat. You never know if they're going to hand the ball off. So I think that it's going to be tough to force turnovers. They're going to need to get some fumbles, at least 1 or 2, and a pick as well. It's going to be tough, Shaun. This team, personnel-wise, sucks. We've talked about it repeatedly. The injuries, everything. They're not a good team. They're terrible. There's a reason why the Colts are the major favorite in this game. So the hope is that the Giants are able to force turnovers and not turn the ball over themselves. My game, listen. It's gonna be a blowout. I don't think it's gonna be close. I had 25-10 last week, which is kind of close if you take away the 2 pick sixes or maybe one of them. It was closer than you. I think that the Colts win this game 34-12. I think there's some BS safety in there. Like there's some I
like it.
What's the word? I don't know. There's some tomfoolery in this game. There's some BS. I don't know. And I think that the Giants kick a few field goals, and maybe Drew Lock is able to Neighbors is able to find the end zone. We'll see, Shaun. I'm just get the season over with, man. Let's get on to the Eagles. I'm interested to talk about that game because there are a few storylines going into that one. So let's just get past this game, continue the tank, and keep trudging forward here.
Yeah, I truthfully, Bryce, cannot wait for the offseason and what awaits us in terms of I actually think we've been downtrodden for months doing this podcast, and the listeners that have stuck through or maybe joined aboard, I appreciate you guys. I actually think the offseason has a chance to be what the season should have been, which is fun. We get to have fun with draft debates and free agency debates and maybe even a coaching search or a GM search. I don't know. But all that stuff has the potential to be fun content. So I'm looking forward to the offseason. We have one more preview pod to go. We're going to obviously have a recap pod following the game at some point, Sunday night, Monday morning, whatever the heck it is. And, we'll get back at it. And, before you know it, it's New Year's and we're closing out the season with the Philadelphia Eagles. So, and just one more thought here on the NFL in general. Enjoy this weekend of the NFL. We already have 2 games in because not for nothing. The last week of the season may have zero drama to it. The way the playoffs have kind of shaped up here, which is a rarity for the NFL. They expanded the playoffs hoping there would be drama. There's a chance everything is sewed up playoff-wise ahead of Week 18. You might have like some Viking Lion, who's the 1 seed drama. I don't know how the NFL is going to materialize 2 important Saturday games and a Sunday night game. That is going to be interesting, but a very, very, for as bad as the Giants have been, the NFL's kind of been crappy this year too. So I guess it was a good year to be crappy in a weird way because 9 teams have 4 wins or less. The playoff seeds are kind of sewed up. There's not a lot of drama. There's not a lot of drama to the league. So there's other fan bases not feeling as bad as us, but also feeling pretty crappy. If that makes you feel better, I don't know. But nonetheless, that's where it's at. So, and you could be the 9th worst team in the league and sitting through a season where you won 4 games. You could be us sitting through 2 wins and being at the top of the draft. Again, I say I'd rather be us. I'd rather be us in that spot. Yeah. So that's it. Download, subscribe to One Giant Step everywhere podcasts are available, clearly, to get a reaction episode, and you want to be locked and loaded for all the off-season content that comes your way. I'm Shaun Morash. You can get me on Twitter at Shaun Morash. It's Shaun. I'll be back with John Schmelk Sunday morning, 7 a.m. Big Blue Kickoff Live, free on the Odyssey app as well. At Bryce Gelman, where you can find young Bryce, BryceGelman. Check him out there too, because as the Giants season winds down, he, basically just latches onto his Knicks crap and tweets out a ton about that stuff.
Oh, wow. Hey, how's Mikal Bridges doing? How's he doing?
Great. Good for you. Yeah. Keep wearing him into the ground with all those minutes from Tibbs. We'll see how that pays off in the playoffs.
Fine. Okay. Hasn't missed a game since high school. Sean, thanks.
Hasn't played this many minutes either. Good luck. All right. Thank you to everybody for taking one giant step with us. Go Nets.